Were the Maple Leafs really willing to trade Mitch Marner at the trade deadline? And what does this mean for his future as a Maple Leaf? We'll get into these reports and break down the Leafs' loss to Colorado over the weekend. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. What an eventful weekend it was in Leafland, wasn't it, Dave?
Can never, ever not be quiet. Just, we can just get past the trade deadline, enjoy the new guys that came in. No, you can't do that.
No, that's why we can't have nice things. That's why we can't have nice things. And Mitch Marner's Mitch Marner's been a very nice thing, right? It's been a nice thing to have over the last, what's he been here for now? 8-9 years. But how much longer is he going to be a Maple Leaf? That's a question that a lot of Leaf fans now find themselves asking after the report came out over the weekend that the Maple Leafs actually engaged in trade discussions with the Carolina Hurricanes and got as far as asking Mitch if he would consider waiving his no trade clause. I did not expect for that report to come out. And I don't know, how shocked were you to see that the Leafs were willing to put Mitch Marner into trade talks with the whole Rantanen situation?
I'm not shocked that Carolina asked. I am a little shocked that I get it. Brad Treliving has to do his job and explore options, right? Especially with the way that it's now been known that negotiations haven't exactly gone so smoothly, right? I mean, it really hasn't been.
Yeah, it's fair to note for Marner's sake that the Leafs tried to get a deal done with Marner prior to the deadline, it sounds like, and they just couldn't find a deal. And that's when they decided, well, maybe a trade, possibly, so we don't let this guy walk, could be in the cards.
Yeah.
And that's when that became a thing. I think, to be fair, their preference is to sign Marner, but with that contract not coming to any resolution by the deadline, then they started to think about possibly trading him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Brad Treliving has been through this before. Like, we have to always bring up the Calgary situation.
Yeah,
didn't lose Matthew Tkachuk. You at least got a chance to trade him.
Johnny Gaudreau, he lost.
You lost Johnny Gaudreau for nothing, right?
Yeah,
and we know that this is not just a Mitch Marner situation. I look at Florida with Sam Bennett, same agent, wants to walk his client to free agency. They have the right. They certainly have the right. But don't make it seem like the team isn't going to explore their options either. You want to explore your options? Well, the team has options they're going to explore too. Now, what benefits Marner is the no movement clause that he has. And I think he knew, and they know that, right? Like,
right.
Oh, yeah, okay, you want to go shop me somewhere else? I'm just like, you're not going to move me.
Options, right? With the quotations. Like, they're gonna see what their options are. But if Mitch doesn't want to go anywhere, and as he stated post-game when pressed on this after the loss to Colorado, he came out and flat out said, I wanted to be a Maple Leaf. Like, I want to stay here. I want to win here. And that's what I'm focused on. Had no wants to discuss the contract. I'm not surprised. He told us at the beginning of the year that it wasn't something he was going to discuss throughout the season. He wasn't going to negotiate through the media. But he was asked point blank, like, were you asked to waive, or were you surprised when you were asked to waive your no move clause? And he came out and said, I kind of thought something might come up. So he didn't decline that he was asked to waive. So that kind of tells us that that report is true, and it did get to that point. And then Brad Treliving had to come out and speak with the media today. And that was really, I think, where I think alarm bells kind of go off, where it's like, whoa, like, this was legit. Like, that was a legit report. And Treliving felt the need to get ahead of it so he can try and squash any beef that And I want to say the media is trying to make, like, if there's a rift between the Leafs and Marner, because he was very glowing about Marner today, saying how we want him here. He wants to be here. We want to try and win with him. We're still going to try and make him a Maple Leaf long-term. All those favorite buzzwords were out there, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that on Friday, there was a consideration of shipping that guy to Carolina.
Yeah. Like, I think what Brad Living was trying to do is say, okay, I got to play a little PR here because Mitch is now being asked questions on something that it's not like Mitch Marner asked for the move, right? I mean, obviously, the fact that they haven't been able to come to a contract has also led to this. But he had to come out, and if for him to not say anything, it would almost still be like Mitch would be like, well, now I got to answer these questions. Like, I don't want to answer these questions, right? And Brad Shilby needed to come out and say, and I think, and some people are like, oh, I don't know why Brad did this, because look at what the conversation has been like since that report came out, right? You know for a fact that he needed to come out and just say, like, that's past, because it's no, we're in the past with that. They want to make it known they want Marner. But the fact that he didn't take questions on it, like, take a question on it, man. Like, I don't know why you're putting it out there that you don't want to take questions. Just it's almost like
it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, Dave.
So, like, I kind of said, like, you put yourself in this position, you have to own it in a way, right? Like, if you went down this path and like, I understand, like, I'm curious to know who leaked this, like, which side, because there's 3 sides into this. Leaf side, there's a Hurricane side, and there's the Marner side.
Yeah,
I'm wondering who was the one that kind of let it be.
Yeah, like, this definitely doesn't benefit Toronto, and it doesn't benefit Marner. Like, neither of those sides this benefits, clearly. Like, Mitch doesn't want to be known as a player that the Leafs were willing to move on from to bring in a different player that they think is more capable of delivering in the playoffs. That doesn't look good on him. And at the same time, obviously the Maple Leafs don't want this getting out there, obviously, because what happened, Rantanen went elsewhere. Now you got to try and, save face with Marner. And now it's even out in the public. And now it just, doesn't look great on Toronto. And I don't know, like, you think there's going to be any ramifications here? Like, is Marner going to remember what happened here? Like, would you say that because of the fact that they asked and it went this far to where he was asked if he'd consider waiving his no move clause, and the fact that this report got out there and now he was being peppered in the media with questions, like, does that change any, like, percentage of him not returning next year? Like, is there anything that believes that this whole 48 hours makes Marner think twice about coming back to Toronto?
I don't know if it makes him,
hours, I guess.
Yeah, what I would say is probably it really pushes that thinking of he's going to continue to push for free agency, right? At this rate, it's just like, you've gone this long, you're going to go probably, past playoffs and, God knows how long it's going to go. I think he'll say to Toronto, if you really want me to come back, you're going to have to meet what I want in a way. Like, the whole idea of potentially him taking a hometown discount, that's gone. To me, that's gone. I don't think he's going to give Toronto any breaks considering that potential move.
Was that ever there, though? Like, I think if
think
he was
for
willing
him to
but the Leafs were willing to sign him. They were willing to negotiate. And if he was willing to give some sort of hometown discount, quote unquote, I feel like a deal could have been done. Like, I don't know if that's what I mean.
If he was willing to give a hometown discount. We've known that of Mitch, because Austin got this much, Willie's now getting this much. It's almost like, well, I gotta show the love there too. No way.
Yeah. Austin, you could argue, took a slight haircut from what maybe he would have been worth. Like, I think a lot of people thought at the time, like, maybe took a little bit of a haircut. Definitely didn't hold Tree Living's feet to the fire to get us every dollar he could. That's for sure. But it feels like maybe Marner might try and do that.
What Matthews didn't do is Matthews didn't go, I'm kind of curious to see what like I'm not ready to sign, or like Matthews made it a point to sign. Right?
Yeah, and he got done the summer before his final season. So that distraction was not anywhere near that organization or him once the season got going. Wasn't a distraction. And not that it's been a distraction for Marner. And I mean, the guy did score 2 goals over the weekend also. So like he had
I said go fitting that he goes and scores a couple of goals.
Yeah.
It was almost like I was like looking at his body language. I was almost gonna be like, is he gonna like have a little bit of a smirk about it, or like, oh, these guys wanted to get rid of me, or look to get rid of me, and I go out nice.
Maybe.
I mean, I was kind of saying, hey, if Martin's gonna take it personally and play some good hockey, I mean that works for me too.
Yeah, and I took that personally. A little Michael Jordan, and I took that personally. A lot of those, although he did take that costly penalty late in the third period there also. So the good with the bad is what you get with a guy like with Mitch Marner. All right, let's put a pin in the Marner talk for now. I'm sure this will not be the last time that this gets brought up over the course of the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot more discussion about this. We could put a pin in it for now. Let's come back and dive into the game over the weekend. It was the first time we got to see the newcomers, Brandon Carlo and Scott Lawton, play. It was a loss, but we'll break it down and see what concerning trends we've noticed from the group as of late. So that's all coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I am a big fan of the no shell option. It's the perfect grab and go snack. It's not messy and it's good for a busy day. Whether you're eating at your desk, you're going on the road, or you just need a quick protein boost, they're always a go-to. And if you love cracking open the shell, then you can get the in-shell options as they are a classic favorite. Get snacking and cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here on the show. We're here each and every weekday with a brand new episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and also up on YouTube. The Maple Leafs with another loss over the weekend, Dave. Those L's are starting to pile up, and the Panthers continue to pile up points in the upward direction, and they're starting to really make a little bit of a cushion between them and Toronto at the top of the Atlantic. And considering how beastly that Atlantic division got, man, that top seed's going to be real important. And Leafs didn't do themselves any favors with a 7-4 loss to Colorado.
No, and I was feeling pretty good going into this game because earlier that afternoon, Boston goes and beats Tampa 4-0.
Yep.
And I'm like, great. That's like the perfect result. The Bruins that gave up everybody go out and lose the game. That helps the Leafs. And didn't really help because the Leafs ended up losing to, I guess maybe that was the benefit, is that they at least kept second with the loss. But
Florida won 4-0 though. Over
Buffalo. Yeah, I saw them playing Buffalo. I'm like, that's an automatic W there. Yeah, so
that's 2 points. 2 points in the bag. Now when Toronto plays Buffalo, but when Florida plays, that's 2 points in the bag.
That pretty much. So that first period was such a gong show.
That's a good word for it, Dave. That is a great word for it.
Like I'm just like, oh, we're in for one tonight. Like, I understand the Leafs, at least unlike the game against Vegas, didn't let it let a 2-0 lead like balloon into another 5-2 loss.
Mhm.
But they pushed back only to then just like at no point in that game that I feel like that they were controlling the pace of the game. They were always chasing Colorado. I
Mhm.
understand that Colorado's guys, there's a lot of guys on that team that are just, it's like a track meet for them. And you saw that especially from, McKinnon, just the way he played in that game is just absolute beast. Valley Nichushkin, just absolutely,
Hattie.
yeah, just a lot that didn't go right for the Leafs. But yeah, that was my, looking at this game, it was just like at no point did I feel like the Leafs were ever in the game, like had any sort of good flow of the game. Like they were responding, they caught some good breaks, some bad goaltending to start, and they just could never get things going the right way, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up pretty well. And this is a few games in a row now that the Leafs have had poor goaltending, subpar goaltending. And I don't know if that's a concerning trend to you or not, but I know the larger sample size on the season has been great. But we're now looking at, 4 or 5 games in a row here where both goalies have been giving up 4 or 5 spots each and every night. Like, are you concerned that maybe these goalies who've never really performed like this or played this many games in a season are starting to kind of come back to earth a little bit? And for a while, they've been papering over some of those warts in this group. And if you're not getting those big saves anymore, this is kind of what it looks like for a team when you look at their expected goals. That's middle of the pack. Like, is that a
Yeah, I
concern
mean,
for you, at least goaltending lately?
a little bit. Like I understand it. I'm not saying that the Leafs goaltending has been the reason for this, but the problem is the Leafs goaltending hasn't helped stop the bleeding, which that was what, as you're saying, was helped earlier in the season. Like to me, right now, I feel like there's too many passengers, and when you have too many passengers, especially with a defense like Chris Tanev out, you're not going to be able to get by, right? Like, look, I think the goaltending eventually will settle down a little bit and get back on track, but it's only going to happen if the Leafs defense starts to, in essence, wake up and get back to what they're doing pretty well, which was blocking shots, making it tougher for the opposing team to get into those high danger areas. This team right now is giving up way too many high danger chances, even at 5-on-5. When was the last time the Leafs outchanced their opposition at 5-on-5?
Yeah, it's been a little bit. It's been a little bit,
Right?
so it seems, at least. Like, they haven't played well since coming back from the Four Nations break. Like, even those wins, like they had that 5-game winning streak coming out of the break, but like they kind of knuckled out and got some good goaltending and got some timely depth scoring along the way, but they never really controlled a lot of these games. And I think that's what's kind of concerning is now you go up against, a couple of behemoths like the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. And it's like, you can't luck into wins against good teams like that. They'll beat you. And that's exactly kind of how things have played out for Toronto over the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this one. That second period, the Leafs were outchanced at high danger chances 6-1 at 5-on-5. Now, interesting enough, only allowed 1 goal in that period versus 3 goals in the first period, where the chances weren't like that. So I think maybe the first period goaltending could have been a bit. I think that's probably my issue. Is the first period could have been better for the goaltending, but no, like there's. Like you look at how much time they're spending in their own zone. They're spending too much time in their own zone. You can see guys are getting tired, and they're not sustaining enough time in the offensive zone. Like there are some serious things that need to be worked out here. Is it a chemistry issue? I don't think so. A lot of the guys who are playing, other than the new players, the guys who've been playing with each other prior to the trade deadline, have been the culprits, right? I look at, just looking at the stats here, Simon Benoit, big time culprit. He was, Philip Myers, Like that technically you're depth players, but they're kind of the big culprits for me. They got to be better.
Now, I'm just looking at natural stat trick right now, right? And we're talking about how this team has not defended very well this year, and goaltending has papered over a lot of the inefficiencies on the blue line. And it's not just recently. I went back and I'm pulling these numbers since December 1st, not January 1st, not since coming back from Four Nations, since December 1st. That's a 40 game sample size, Dave. The Maple Leafs are what do they rank here? They've given up the fourth most expected goals, and in expected goals against, they rank 29th in the league in expected goals against. That's pretty brutal. That's below Buffalo, below Anaheim, below Seattle, below Boston, like below Pittsburgh, below the Red Wings, below Utah. Legitimately, only San Jose, Chicago, and Montreal have given up more, expected goals, high danger, quality and quantity of scoring chances and high danger chances than Toronto. So, like, the defending has been poor, and you're seeing now that when you don't get the big saves, it kind of shows up in a big way.
I want the Leafs to make the night easier for a goaltender for a change.
It'd be nice.
Like that would be like if I was Craig Berube right now, I'd be telling the guys, if you think you've played well enough in front of your goaltender, give your heads a shake. Right. But the other thing too is that on the blue line, there's not really much he can change. Right. I think up front, maybe you got to tell these forwards, like, you got to help out this blue line. It's struggling. Be more, be more supportive towards your defenders, because we always look at the blue line and say, like, oh, Morgan Rally hasn't been good. You can put Benoit on there, you can put Myers, before that Timmins, but like, it's a 5-man unit in that zone. Yep. Everyone's got to chip in, block some shots, get in the passing lanes a bit better. Like, find a way for the team to pull it out rather than hoping for one or two guys to do it.
Well, the two players they brought in at the NHL trade deadline are expected to stop the bleeding and expected to perform well and defend well in their own end. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back and we'll get your thoughts and mine on how those players, Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo, looked in their debut, and we'll also get to the good, the bad, the ugly as well. So that's coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals. They were packed with flavor and kept me full all throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use the code Locked On NHL 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Locked On NHL 50 off at factormeals.com/Locked On NHL 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box with Factor. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. And we're reacting to the Maple Leafs 7-4 loss to the Colorado Avalanche over the weekend. I guess it was a closer score, at least. I mean, I think the Leafs definitely got, their butts handed to them for a majority of that game. But it was 4-4, with 5 minutes to go in the game. And then Mitch Marner takes a penalty, Avs score. Make it 5-4 and put up a couple of empty net goals. And that's why you see a 3-goal differential there, but it was close in the third period. The Leafs definitely had an opportunity and a chance to win this game, but bad penalty at the wrong time. And they quickly saw a 4-4 tie lead to a 7-4 loss, and not a fun flight home or out to Utah for the Maple Leafs. Okay, quickly, I want to get your thoughts on the debuts of both Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton.
Yeah, I thought tough start, right? I mean, it's kind of they didn't have a practice; they were just thrown into the game. It's not easy to do, especially when you're going up against a team like Colorado. Yeah, obviously Laughton didn't have a great game. I think again it was one of those he's learning things kind of on the fly. Carlo, I thought had at least more of an you saw what he can do. Like the guy played the most. He comes in, hey Brandon, you're gonna be probably playing the most minutes out of all of our D-men tonight. Have fun out there. That was tough. I did not expect to see that. 6 blocks in the game, played a lot on the penalty kill too. So
yeah,
like I know he was on the ice, I think, for 2 goals against to start. Was he on the ice for both goals against in the kind to start the game? Or at least 2, 3 maybe.
I know definitely he was on for 1. He ended up with like a 0 rating.
Yeah.
So
but
it's not like the -4 or anything like that. Scott Laughton was a -2 in the game. He didn't register a shot on goal, just 1 hit, 1 block in just under 12 minutes for Scott Laughton. But yeah, Carlo played 22:04, 6 blocks, 1 hit, and he was just a 0 rating on the night.
Yeah, I Laughton was a bit. That third line was guilty of too many chances allowed against.
Oh yeah.
And that obviously he comes out after the game. He says like, I got to be better. Not good enough for me. So acknowledging that the fact that like what he gave wasn't enough, was kind of hoping maybe we would have seen some adjustments. So help a little bit with Laughton there. Cause I think it really wasn't working. Like maybe you would have, get him off that third line for a bit just to, give him a chance. Maybe, I don't know. There's not really
wow. What are you gonna like? That's where you want him to thrive, and you just got to make. I don't know. There's nothing you can do about with Laughton. I think you're leaving Laughton where it is. You're just kind of scrambling things up. And I think in practice, I saw on Sunday they did make a change. So Bobby McMahon's going to move up to the second line, and they're going to move Domi over. And then who did I see was Holmberg is going to be on the third line there, I believe. So they're making a tiny adjustment to that.
It's almost like we talked about having McMahon on the top 6 for a bit.
Yes.
So the line
McMahon or Domi, one of those two.
Yeah, McMahon, Tavares, Nylander, Holmberg, Laughton, Domi, Lorentz, Camp, and Robertson.
Yeah.
Yarncroke's still a scratch, which
he hurt. That's a couple games.
I know he didn't look.
Something?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to manage it a bit, like manage his minutes, considering he's coming back from a pretty lengthy absence. I know, like, I maybe they're just being cautious. I'd like to know more about that, but yeah, again, I'm not going to sound the alarms after one game. Let's see how they do after they get some practice and get a chance to really acclimate. So yeah, I think, obviously Carlo had more of an impact, but I think considering how much he played, not surprised.
Yeah, you definitely expect for that. But I think we're only going to see these guys get better and better with the Maple Leafs. I still like the Fits a lot, and I think it'll work out. Like, Carlo and Riley were talking about how they believe they can be a really good pairing. So, we'll have to wait and see, obviously, and make sure that actually happens. Can't take them at their word for it because we've heard that about a lot of different pairings, and not always the case. But so far, not a bad start for him. Laughton, definitely much improvement needed in his next game tomorrow against Utah. All right, I think that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.